Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, July 2nd, 2017, and this is your fun fact of the day. Thank you for joining us again for the start of another semester. Well, some things are going to change, like weekdays, and some things will not, like weekends. We are still in the middle of a weekend, so we are going to continue, as Sundays have shown to be, with Bible facts. We're also going to be continuing the trend from last semester where we look at some very common stories and some parts of the Bible that many people have probably heard of, or at the very least have heard references to, even if they didn't know what the reference was. And we're going to expound on them a little bit. We finished Genesis last semester, and today we're going to look at Exodus and where that picks up at. There's actually a gap of about 300 years between the end of Genesis with Joseph's life and how his whole family ended up in Egypt, and the start of Exodus, where we have what's happening in Egypt at the time and what leads to Moses ending up in Pharaoh's household. Let's look at that. First of all, Exodus means exit or departure. The title of the book is literally about how God's people start in Egypt and then leave. So Joseph and his entire family, as we learned, stayed in Egypt for quite a while. They grew, they multiplied, all was well. Joseph helped save the entirety of Egypt and probably many surrounding countries from the famine that lasted 7 years. So Pharaoh was very grateful, told Joseph to bring his whole family to settle. They did. All was well. Well, across time and across generations, eventually one Pharaoh dies and another comes up, but generations of Pharaohs pass, and eventually there comes a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph, who did not remember Joseph or his family or all that he'd done for their kingdom. Looking at the amount of Israelites versus Egyptians, this Pharaoh, who did not know Joseph, decides, we should do something about these numbers, because if they ever decide to realize how many of them there are versus how many there are of us, they could easily take us over. Idea, let's make slaves out of them. Let's put them to work. The Pharaoh hoped that enslavement would keep their numbers lower. Kind of worked, kind of didn't, depends how you look at it. The Israelites kept multiplying, even through slavery. The Egyptians oppressed the Israelites even more in light of their growing numbers, but the Israelites continued to grow, be fruitful and multiply. Well, there comes a time where the Pharaoh decides to take drastic measures and wants to execute all male children born to a generation, or at the very least a certain time span. Well, this brings up the story in Exodus 1 of two brave women. The names were Shiphrah and Puah. These women were midwives. They worked as women who helped birth babies. And when they got this edict from the Pharaoh to eliminate male babies, so as to control the Israelite population in a sense, they said no. Not publicly. They didn't come out and say no, but they deliberately acted against that command from Pharaoh. They possibly had the decent humanity to not follow the order from a jealous king to kill a baby just because, especially after it's been born. Remembering in biblical times, they didn't know anything about birth defects, genetic defects, or gender before the actual birth occurred. So the order was to kill male children, the only qualification it takes for the child to be executed. So these midwives decided not to. Now, Pharaoh actually catches wind of this and summons for Shiphrah and Puah to be brought before him, and he asks, so I said for male children, male Israelite children in particular, to be killed, or make it seem like they're dying in the birthing process, another common thing in ancient times. Why have you disobeyed me? Shiphrah and Puah look at each other and say, well, when they summoned for us because they're giving birth, these Israelite women, they're strong, they're vigorous, they work, they're slave women. They got some muscle to them. They've already given birth before by the time we even get there. God actually dealt well with Shiphrah and Puah and their families, realizing that they would not do Pharaoh's evil bidding. So this sets us up for how the Israelites were attempted to be oppressed and then actually oppressed, and how the Egyptians came to rule over them, and how some dissidence was already growing between Pharaoh and his commands versus the Israelites and their conditions. And this will set us up for Moses next week. You ever seen the movie Prince of Egypt? This is basically the opening song, Deliver Us. It's this describing the current situation that we have now reached in Bible Fact Sundays. If you haven't seen that movie, you can give it a watch. It's not bad. It's enjoyable. Definitely got some historical accuracy to it, but as with many biblical tales, it has to take some embellishments and liberties as well. In other news today is National Anisette Day. Anisette. It's a liqueur commonly enjoyed through the Mediterranean countries, places like Spain and Greece and Italy and around that area. Never had it myself, but I like trying new things. If I ever come across it, I'll let you know. Hope you've enjoyed this fun fact of the day. See you tomorrow.